Sophia Bennet had always believed in love as if it were something sacred, untouchable, and everlasting. Growing up in a small town where promises were simple and words meant more than gold, she had kept her heart guarded, waiting for someone who would understand her silences, her laughter, and her hidden fears. She never thought that person would arrive on an ordinary spring afternoon, when the world was dressed in blossoms and the air was heavy with renewal. Ethan Carter walked into her life with the kind of confidence that drew every eye in the room. His smile wasn't just charming, it was calculated, sharp enough to cut through doubts yet soft enough to disarm the most cautious soul. He carried himself like someone who had already been forgiven for sins he had yet to commit. To Sophia, who sat in the corner of the cafe reading a book, he looked like the answer to a question she had never dared to ask. Their first conversation was brief, almost accidental. Ethan had ordered his coffee, noticed her reading Wuthering Heights, and with a casual smirk, remarked, "A story about toxic love. Brave choice." Sophia had looked up, startled by the boldness in his voice, but the warmth in his eyes made her forget her irritation. They talked for hours, about books, music, dreams, and life's small cruelties. By the time she realized how much time had slipped away, dusk had already wrapped the streets outside. From that day on, Ethan became a constant presence in her life. He texted her first thing in the morning, called her late at night, and found excuses to see her in between. He made her laugh until tears fell from her eyes, and when she cried, he held her so gently that she felt her pain dissolve in his arms. He told her things that sounded like truths carved from stone: "You're the only one who understands me," or "I've never felt this way about anyone before." Sophia wanted to believe every word. She did believe every word. Yet, from the very beginning, there were shadows in Ethan's charm, small inconsistencies she tried to ignore. Sometimes, he would vanish for hours with vague excuses about work. Sometimes, his phone would buzz with messages he quickly silenced. When she asked, he would laugh it off, brush her hair back from her face, and whisper, "You worry too much. Don't you trust me?" And she did. Against her better judgment, she did. Months passed, and their love grew like a wildfire, beautiful, dangerous, uncontrollable. Sophia's friends warned her, gently at first, then with urgency. "There's something about him," her best friend Emma whispered one night. "The way he looks at people, like he's calculating. Please, be careful." But Sophia only smiled. "He loves me," she said, as if those 3 words could erase every red flag. Then came the night everything changed. Sophia had decided to surprise Ethan with dinner at his apartment. She wanted to celebrate their 6-month anniversary, even though he had claimed to be too busy to remember. She carried the food in trembling hands, her heart racing with excitement. But when she opened his door because he had given her a key, a symbol of trust, her world shattered into fragments too sharp to ever piece together again. Ethan wasn't alone. Another woman stood in the living room, her hair tousled, her shirt halfway buttoned. She looked at Sophia with wide eyes, frozen between shame and defiance. And Ethan had the audacity to smile, as if the whole thing were a misunderstanding too trivial to matter. "Sophia," he began smoothly, walking toward her, "this isn't what it looks like." But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. The bag in Sophia's hand slipped, containers spilling across the floor, the smell of food filling the silence that followed. Her heart felt like it had been ripped from her chest, crushed beneath his casual lies. Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't let them fall, not in front of him, not in front of her replacement. She turned and left without a word, her footsteps echoing like a funeral march down the hallway. That night, Sophia cried until her body ached, until she thought her ribs might crack from the weight of it. She replayed every conversation, every kiss, every whispered promise, and realized they had all been poisoned. Ethan hadn't just betrayed her, he had robbed her of the belief that love could be real. But the story didn't end there. It never ends so cleanly. For Ethan, betrayal wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. And Sophia, despite her shattered heart, wasn't free from him. Not yet. In the days that followed, he didn't vanish as she had hoped. Instead, he became more present, almost suffocatingly so. He sent flowers to her door, texted her endlessly, stood outside her workplace with that same disarming smile. "Sophia," he would plead, "it was nothing. You're the one I love. She meant nothing to me. Don't throw this away over a mistake." At first, she ignored him. Then she told him to leave her alone. But Ethan was relentless, his charm turning into obsession. And Sophia began to feel the walls closing in, shadows following her even when she was alone. Some nights, she swore she could hear footsteps outside her window. Other times, her phone would ring, and when she answered, there would be silence on the other end. Ethan was everywhere, apologizing, begging, promising, threatening. Sophia realized with horror that breaking up with Ethan was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Sophia thought heartbreak would be the worst of it. She thought once she walked away from Ethan, the pain would dull with time, and she could gather the broken pieces of her life to build something new. But she underestimated how far Ethan's shadow would reach, and how tightly he still clung to her even after she had tried to escape. At first, his gestures seemed like desperate apologies, flowers left at her door, handwritten notes slid under the crack, voicemails thick with regret. She deleted his messages, threw away his roses, and shredded his letters, determined to erase him from her life. But Ethan was not the kind of man who accepted rejection. To him, her silence was not an answer, it was an invitation. One night, Sophia returned home from work to find Ethan sitting on the steps of her apartment building, waiting. His hair was disheveled, his eyes restless. He looked less like the polished charmer she once fell in love with, and more like someone unraveling thread by thread. "Why are you here?" she asked coldly, her keys trembling in her hand. "I needed to see you," he said, standing quickly. His voice was urgent, almost frantic. "Sophia, please. I made a mistake, but I can fix this. I can fix us." "There is no us," she replied, forcing her tone to stay firm. "You cheated on me, Ethan. You destroyed everything. Leave me alone." His jaw tightened. For a moment, his eyes darkened with something dangerous, but then he smiled, that familiar mask slipping back into place. "You don't mean that. You love me. I know you do." Sophia turned and hurried inside, locking the door behind her. Her heart pounded as his voice drifted through the wood, soft and coaxing, like a lullaby laced with poison. "You'll see, Sophia. You'll come back to me. You can't live without me." That night, she hardly slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, made her sit up in fear. She told herself she was imagining things, but deep down, she knew Ethan wasn't going to let go so easily. Days blurred into weeks, but Ethan was always there, lingering like a ghost. She saw him across the street when she left for work, his figure half hidden behind a lamppost. She caught glimpses of his car following her through the city. Once, she came home to find her curtains drawn open even though she was sure she had closed them before leaving. Sophia confided in Emma, her best friend, who grew increasingly alarmed. "This isn't just heartbreak anymore, Soph," Emma warned. "This is dangerous. He's stalking you." "I know," Sophia whispered, her hands trembling around her teacup. "But what do I do? If I go to the police, they'll say he hasn't done anything yet. He's clever. He knows how to make it look like love instead of obsession." Emma leaned forward, gripping her hand. "Then you have to be strong. Don't let him near you. Block him everywhere." Promise me, Sophia. Sophia nodded, though fear gnawed at her. Blocking him seemed useless. Ethan always found another way. The turning point came on a stormy night, when rain lashed against her windows and thunder rattled the glass. Sophia was curled on her couch with a book, trying to distract herself from the anxiety that had become her constant companion, when the power suddenly went out. Her apartment sank into darkness. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Hands shaking, she unlocked it. The text was from an unknown number, but the words chilled her blood. You look beautiful in that blue sweater. I love when you wear it. Her breath caught. She looked down at herself, at the very sweater she was wearing. Then she looked toward the window curtains wide open, rain streaking the glass. Someone was watching her. Heart racing, she dropped to the floor and crawled toward the window, yanking the curtains closed. Her fingers fumbled as she dialed Emma's number. The line rang once, twice, before her friend answered groggily. Emma, Sophia whispered, tears in her eyes. He's outside. I know he is. He just texted me what I'm wearing. Emma's voice sharpened instantly. Lock all the doors. Don't go near the windows. I'm calling the police. Sophia did as she was told, her entire body trembling. She huddled in the dark corner of her living room, listening to every sound: the wind, the rain, the creak of the building. Every noise felt like Ethan's footsteps drawing closer. By the time the police arrived, Ethan was gone. They searched the area but found nothing. To them, it was just a text from an unverified number, hardly enough proof to pursue. They suggested she stay with a friend for the night. So she did. She packed a small bag and went to Emma's apartment, where she finally collapsed into an exhausted, dreamless sleep. But the reprieve was temporary. Over the next weeks, Ethan's obsession escalated. He left gifts on her doorstep: her favorite books, her favorite chocolates, even a necklace she once admired in a store window but never told him about. The detail terrified her. He was watching her far more closely than she realized. One evening, she returned home to find a note taped to her door in his familiar handwriting. You can push me away, but you'll always be mine. No one else will ever love you the way I do. Sophia's stomach twisted. She felt trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She tried to stay brave, but inside, fear consumed her every waking moment. She stopped walking home alone, avoided places she thought he might appear, and yet no matter what she did, Ethan always seemed to be there, lurking in the edges of her life. The final straw came when Emma found a small, sealed envelope slipped under her own apartment door. Inside was a photograph of Sophia, taken without her knowledge. She was walking home, her face turned slightly, the late afternoon sun catching her hair. On the back of the photograph, scrawled in Ethan's hand, were 4 words: "She belongs to me." Emma's hands shook as she showed it to Sophia. This isn't just obsession anymore. This is dangerous. If we don't do something soon, her voice trailed off, but Sophia didn't need her to finish. She knew. Deep down, she knew Ethan wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. And the thought terrified her more than anything she had ever felt. Sophia had reached her breaking point. Weeks of torment had hollowed her spirit, leaving her a shadow of the woman she once was. Fear had become her constant companion, stalking her every step, whispering in her ear whenever she dared to feel even a flicker of peace. She lived like a prisoner inside her own home. The locks on her door multiplied, the curtain stayed closed, and the mirror in her hallway was covered because just once she thought she had seen Ethan's reflection standing behind her. Emma begged her to leave the city, to disappear for a while. But Sophia was stubborn. If I run, she said, he'll only chase me. I can't live like prey. I need to face him. Emma's eyes filled with worry. Facing him is dangerous. He isn't the man you knew anymore, sophomore. He's broken, and when broken people can't fix themselves, they destroy the ones they claim to love. Sophia looked away, her heart aching. Part of her still remembered Ethan's laughter, his warmth, the way his hand used to fit perfectly with hers. That part wanted to believe he could change. But the truth was undeniable now, the man she loved no longer existed. What remained was something dark, unpredictable, and frightening. The confrontation came sooner than she expected. It was late evening when Sophia returned from the grocery store, a cold wind whipping at her coat. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, she noticed her door was slightly ajar. Her heart stopped. She was sure she had locked it that morning. Panic surged through her veins. Slowly, cautiously, she pushed the door open. The lights inside were on, casting long shadows across the room. And there, sitting casually on her couch as if he belonged there, was Ethan. Her grocery bag slipped from her hand, apples rolling across the floor. "What are you doing here?" Her voice trembled, but she forced her chin high. Ethan smiled, though his eyes burned with something wild. "I was waiting for you. I missed you, Sophia. You broke into my home." "I still have a key," he said, pulling it from his pocket and twirling it between his fingers. "We were supposed to be forever. Don't you remember?" Sophia's chest tightened. She tried to keep her breathing steady. "You need to leave, Ethan. Right now. Before I call the police." He stood slowly, his movements deliberate. "The police can't keep you from me. You belong to me. You always have, you always will." Sophia backed away, her hands shaking. "No. I don't belong to anyone. Especially not you." The smile vanished from his face. His jaw clenched, his eyes turning cold. "You don't get to decide that." What happened next would haunt Sophia's friends forever. The neighbors later reported hearing raised voices, Sophia's sharp with fear, Ethan's low and commanding. Then a crash, something heavy shattering against the floor. A scream that cut through the night. When Emma arrived, having rushed over after a frantic call from Sophia that ended abruptly, the apartment was eerily silent. The door was wide open, swinging on its hinges. Inside, the living room was in chaos, furniture overturned, glass glittering on the carpet. And there, on the floor near the couch where Ethan had been waiting, lay Sophia. Her body was still, her eyes wide open, frozen in terror. Ethan was nowhere to be found. The police investigation confirmed what Emma already knew in her heart: Ethan had been there. His fingerprints were everywhere, his belongings hidden in corners of Sophia's home like trophies. But Ethan himself had disappeared into the night, vanishing as if the earth had swallowed him whole. For days, search teams scoured the city. Posters went up, his face glaring down from every wall. But no trace of him was ever found. Sophia's funeral was held a week later, a quiet ceremony filled with tears and unanswered questions. Emma stood at the front, clutching Sophia's photograph, her grief laced with guilt. "I should have done more," she whispered to the empty air. "I should have protected you." The crowd wept, but one thing lingered heavier than sorrow: fear. Because Ethan was still out there. And in the silence of the night, when the city was asleep, he was watching. Somewhere, hidden in the shadows, Ethan kept Sophia's necklace in his pocket, the one he had given her long ago. He rubbed it between his fingers like a talisman, his obsession undimmed by her death. To him, she had not left. To him, Sophia would always be his. And so the story ended, not with closure, but with an emptiness that echoed like a scream swallowed by the dark. Sophia's last words, whispered into the phone before the line went dead, lingered in Emma's memory like a curse: "He cheated me, but what he really stole was my life.